been here. First of all, thank you for coming. But before we start, we'll start with the national anthem of Eritrea and Kenya. Thank you. We'll do for the Kenyan anthem again. Her Excellency Ms. Sahle-Work Zewde, Director General of the United Nations Office at Nairobi, Ambassador Purity W. Muhundi, Director, Africa and the AU Directorate, Honorable Senators, Honorable MPs, Cabinet Secretaries, Excellencies, High Commissioners, distinguished guests, fellow Eritreans, ladies and gentlemen. Indeed, it gives me a great pleasure to welcome you all on behalf of the Eritrean Embassy in Kenya and His Excellency Ambassador Bene Rusom to this auspicious Independence Day. I know you have busy schedule and competing demands, for your valuable time. Thank you for choosing to be with us this evening at this moment. Eritreans around the world celebrated the 22nd Independence Day in a spirit of hope and prosperity. This day will be celebrated for the generations to come, for the Independence Day has a special place in the hearts and the minds of all Eritreans who have paid dearly to crown it. That's why we cordially acknowledge and appreciate your presence here with us this evening. This is a momentous day for all Eritreans. Having you here to share it with us makes it more joyful. Having said that, let me call upon His Excellency, the Ambassador, to address us about the second youngest nation in Africa, Eritrea. Welcome, Mr. Ambassador.
Excuse me, I want to be a bit taller. Good evening. Dear honorable guest, Governor Kidero, Ambassador Salwar, the Director General of Union, and the representative from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. I'm very sorry, I don't know her name. Ambassador Puriti, Ambassadors, High Commissioners, Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, friends from Kenya, fellow countrymen and women, good evening again. Good evening. I have some cold, and I wanted to drink a little bit, but you know they said no, so I just have coffee. Excellencies, ambassadors, and high commissioners, I'm very happy, dear guests of honor, and all of you, to see you all here, and I feel very much honored and privileged by your presence amongst us Eritreans during this celebration of our 22nd Independence Day. I really thank you very much for coming. We Africans celebrated Africa Jubilee Day on May 25, together along with other members of the diplomatic community, during which we were honored by the presence of the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya, His Excellency William Ruto. We all felt good, not only because it was a Freedom Day, but also it made each of us remember our freedom days. Indeed, the greatest day of all days. Back home, Eritrea celebrated its Independence Day just one day before the Africa Jubilee Day. The exact date of our independence was May 24, 1991. But here, as I have told my colleagues in our meeting of the African Diplomatic Corps, for the respect of the African Jubilee Day and to show our solidarity with our African brothers and sisters, we decided to postpone our celebration to this day, the 31st of May. So this is not really our day. Our day is 24 May, about 6 days before. This is good because from now on, my African fellow brothers and sisters shall easily remember our Freedom Day, May 24, because it's just the immediate neighbor of our common Africa Freedom Day, May 25. Today, as we are celebrating our Independence Day, many people, including many politicians, might be wondering as to how these 22 years came about. And I might say worse than that, there are still many that even think that we were part and parcel of Ethiopia and that we seceded from Ethiopia. I have encountered many Kenyans, Excellency, honorable guest of honor, that thinks so, and that we forced ourselves to separate from Ethiopia. May I kindly say that this is not the fact, and the truth is not something of the distant past. Sorry to say that our history has not been learned and told the way we Eritreans can tell. I think, dear guests, ladies and gentlemen, if you allow me some more minutes, this is the best opportunity that I can exploit to tell you a bit of our history. I can't find you some other times. And the history is just only that part that tells that we were not part of Ethiopia, and how Eritrea was temporarily erased from the map, and how it again came into being. From the early 16th century to the late 19th century, the Ottoman Turks and the Egyptians came one after the other for control of the Eritrean coast and its ports. But they left few imprints, not like the Europeans or the European powers who undertook a massive process of colonization and scramble of Africa in the second half of the 19th century. The Italians, on their part, managed to grab a slice of northern East Africa, and similarly, in the way the African countries were created, Eritrea was likewise carved by the colonial power, and it became a full-blown Italian colony in 1896. By the end of the 1930s and 40s, Eritrea was one of the most highly industrialized colonies in Africa. All the architectural treasures in Asmara date from this period. When the Allied forces defeated the Italians during the Second World War in 1941, Italy was forced to give up its African possessions, namely Libya, Somalia, and including Eritrea. The so-called liberators, or the Allied forces, instead of granting the Eritreans their independence, like they did to Libya and Somalia, the country was placed under British military trusteeship or administration until 1950. In 1952, a UN resolution ignoring Eritrean pleas for independence passed a verdict to federate Eritrea with Ethiopia. I am sure that some of the older Kenyans still existing, including politicians like President Moi and Kibaki, must have learned Eritrea as a separate country in their geography and history classes. But the resolution went into effect right away. Hence, Eritrea disappeared and was erased from the map of Africa. Look here, how a simple but erroneous UN resolution passed to safeguard the geopolitical interests of the then big powers, or in the words of my president, I quote, in a bid to satisfy the appetite of the then prevailing world order and the interests thereof, unquote, decided the destiny of our people and changes the course of our history, plunging us into endless war with a neighboring country, Ethiopia, resulting in deaths and sufferings of tens of thousands of our peoples of both Eritrea and Ethiopia. Almost immediately after the federation went into effect, the few democratic rights of autonomy began to be abridged or violated, and in 1962, Emperor Haile Selassie unilaterally dissolved the Eritrean